Okay, 30 seconds, folks. 30 seconds will be rolling.
Said the main role lately has been just kind of keep John, keep.
Okay. The regular meeting of the Independent School District 279 School Board is now called to order at 6 p.m. on March 15th, 2019. In fact, it's March 18th, 2019. I just read what's in front of me. Seated in front of you this evening from my left to your right are Director Jackie Mosqueda-Jones, Director Kelsey Dawson-Walton, Director Jessica Craig, myself, Director Mike Ostaffi, Director Tanya Simons, Director Heather Douglas, and Interim Superintendent Dr. James Bauk. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and Director Craig, will you please lead us?
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So board members, in front of you is the agenda. As you can see from the crowd tonight, we have a fun meeting ahead of us. And are there any other additions or changes to the agenda this evening? Is there a motion to accept the agenda as is?
So moved.
Moved by Director Craig. Is there a second?
Second.
By Director Dawson-Walton. Is there any discussion? All in favor of accepting the agenda as printed, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. This time, I would like to ask that Christine Weatherman please step up to the microphone to introduce herself and the topic, which is our Arts in Our Schools Month, and we're going to come on down.
Thank you, yes. They have reserved seats for you in the front row. Thank you. Chairperson Ostaffi, members of the school board, Superintendent Bauk, and members of the cabinet. Welcome to Celebrating Music and Visual Arts across the district. I'm Christine Weatherman. I'm a Staff Development Assessment Specialist, Content Lead for Music and Visual Arts, and the District Program Music Specialist. I've been in the Osseo schools for 32 years and have been proud to be here. It gives me great pleasure right now to introduce the Fiddlefest Fiddlers. Thank you so very much, students from Maple Grove Senior High, Maple Grove Middle School, and Osseo Middle School. Thank you. School Board, if you want to return to your seats, you're free to do so. Yeah, I don't blame you.
You're not talking about slide 3, are you?
You're taking notes.
Yeah. Okay, you have
I'm just
notes
this.
there, and I was like, oh,
Okay.
run.
No.
Okay.
Good thing we're checking.
Okay.
You got this one and this
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
They can just stay there, it's fine. Thank you so much. Jody? Jody? Thank you. As I said before, my theme for tonight is celebrating music and visual arts throughout the district. Our district does many things together with our schools to build community between our schools and in our district. The theme for Music in Our Schools Month is All Music, All People, and I took that further for our district. Working together across the district will be my theme as I keep going, so keep that in mind. I'm going to start with opportunities the senior high students have. Park Center hosted the 19th annual Northwest Suburban Conference Music Festival. On Monday, every student's group from the, I'm having trouble tonight, I apologize with my mouth here, but every school sends its choir, band, and orchestra. They play, and then a clinician works with them on Monday. On Tuesday, we have all conference band, orchestra, and choir. This year, we had 22 students from our senior highs in the all-conference band. We had 24 in the all-conference choir and 25 in the all-conference orchestra. The Music Educators Convention that's held every year in the state, it's very much an honor to be able to perform at that. And Osseo Senior High was the only orchestra chosen in the state this year to perform at that event. Krista Sager is the director for that. And to top that off, Osseo Senior High's choir was one of 9 who was chosen in the state to perform, and Maggie Sabin is the director of that. We have one group, the Grove Area Percussion, that incorporates kids from all 3 of our high schools. It's called GAP. That's what you probably hear it called most often. We have 82 students from our 3 high schools in that group, and they perform nationwide. We have some middle school and senior high collaboration things. The first one is our District 279 Jazz Festival. This year we had 13 jazz bands from our schools. 304 kids participated on the stage. And it was arranged by Paul Terry from Maple Grove Senior High. Here's just a couple pictures of 2 of the high school jazz bands and 2 of the middle school jazz bands. This year Paul added a new thing called the District Honor Jazz Band, and 21 senior high students came together from the 3 high schools to perform for the whole student body. We also had a Fiddle Fest for this year, and you just heard that, or a little bit of that. It was Matt Crone's idea along with the rest of the middle school teachers, so it's year 1 of that, but we actually had 198 students together that day. They rehearsed during the day, they had a concert at night, that kind of is what they look like, lots and lots of instruments. In middle school, we have an honor band, which hadn't been there for quite a while. It was with our middle schools again. 88 students came. The rehearsal was during the day, followed by a concert. And it was arranged this year by Sam Queiss, who is a first-year teacher in our district. Very exciting. They had a guest clinician, Michael Thursby. Middle school also has had an 8th grade orchestra festival for years and years and years. And this year it was directed by Krista Sager of Osseo Senior High. And we had 145 students participating in that. Elementary has its share of cross-district things as well. We have the District 279 Children's Choir, where students from all 17 elementary schools come together once a week to rehearse. They perform several concerts, and this year on tour day, they performed for the state, at the state capitol. Many of the legislators came down and chatted with them, which was very excited. And it was directed by Rachel Vinker and Rick Drake. Here they are at the Capitol, 112 students strong. Fifth grade band is also across the district. They have lessons once a week. They perform 2 evening concerts. And this year we had 589 students in fifth grade band. Orchestra works the same way, all the students from all the schools. Same thing with lessons and performing 2 concerts. And this year we have 519 students in the orchestra in fifth grade. We have 197 music events that parents and citizens can go to. We're very proud of that. And for the 10th year in a row, we have won the Best Community for Music Education from NAM, which is the National Association for Music Merchants. This is unprecedented. We are very proud of this honor. We have 58 music staff, and I'd just like a few of them to stand who are here tonight to be recognized, please. I have submitted the 60-page application for 2019, and we should be hearing in the next couple of weeks. I'm honored tonight that Bob Baker and Paul Thompson are here from Schmidt Music to present the school board with plaques from this award.
Good evening. Hello. I'm Paul Thompson. I'm Vice President of Schmidt Music, and this is Robert Baker, our Chief Operating Officer. And I thought I'd just spend a couple seconds just telling you a little bit about why this is such a big deal. First of all, this award started back in 1998, so it's been going for 20 years, and you've won 10 of them. And so that doesn't happen very often, if at all. And so how this happens is there's a survey that Christine mentioned that it was done by the University of Kansas and WordCraft. And the goals are equity and access to music education for all students and also with national standards for music education. So some of the requirements are student demographics, student-teacher ratio, music education participation rates, music education and or fine arts requirements for graduation, teacher qualifications, music facilities budget. It's a 54-page survey, so there's a lot of criteria that goes into this, so it's not an easy thing to do. And so Schmidt Music is a family-owned business, and we've been around since 122 years. You know, we have a headquarters over here in Brooklyn Center, so we're really happy to represent both Tom and Doug Schmidt, who are our owners, and the NAM board, who presents this and is kind of their advocacy outreach arm to promote and honor great programs like this one. Just so you might know that 583 districts won this year out of 14,000 in the U.S. So that's just 4% of the entire school districts with music programs in the country. And you're one of those, and you're 10 in a row. And so congratulations. We're so happy to be here. I have some plaques that will do that. I think Christine is going to distribute the Educator Award parts.
Yes, they have gotten theirs
Okay.
already, and
All
the
right.
cabinet has theirs in front of them.
Okay.
So we have the school board ones for you at this time.
I have, of course, taken photos.
Thank you. Oh, this is so great. This is actually
Thank you, Paul.
very efficient. Thank you so much. Yes, thank you very much. Okay.
I've got one. You should pull
Wait a
that.
sec.
Oh, sure.
Group picture, would you?
Yes.
Sure.
You want us to bring these?
Yeah. Wanna come down or up here? Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah.
That's really nice.
Here we go, 1, 2, 3. One more time.
Only 4%, yeah.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. We appreciate working with Schmidt Music. They're very supportive of our music program. So I did mention that I'm also visual arts content lead, and I talked with Kelly Parpart earlier this year about making this month Arts in Our Schools Month instead of just Music in Our Schools Month. And my idea was to have some sort of an art show, but I'll tell you why we can't, and I'm going to do a digital art show for you. But first of all, I think you've noticed around the district that the showcases always have some artwork in them. That's on a rotating basis to show all of the district's art things that are going on. I've been really excited in the secondary world, so all the teachers grades 6 through 12 have been working on the high operational practices of Yvette Jackson. And one of those is amplifying student voice and having students take control of their learning experiences. And when I went over to the OELC, Osseo Area Learning Center, our art teacher over there is doing a fantastic job. His name is Corey Gearhart. He has a social justice project where the students were to choose something that they had resonated with them, that they had passion for, to do research about that, and then create some sort of a media project with that. This young lady, Adriana Robertson, chose to do something about the impacts of bullying. Now, in addition to her being an artist and a high school student, she's going to college, and she has a 1-year-old. So she's quite a phenomenal young lady. When I first went over to meet her, she was about this far on the mural, which is at the OELC. Now it looks like this, and I can't wait to see it done. And it will have a plaque with it explaining the images and how it negates bullying. So our district is also very lucky to be part of the 279 Student Art Show. You have this at your desks, so maybe you can stop in the Government Center before the 28th of March, which is next Thursday. It happens to be my birthday, that's why I know that. And it's sponsored by the Maple Grove Arts Center. Today I'm going to show you some of the best of shows. That's what the students are trying to get to. And this will be our digital art show instead of walking through. This is an apple picture by an 8th grader at OMS done in oil pastels. This is an interesting hand done by colored pencils and marker by a 6th grader from Northview. Here is Buddy the Bear, continuous lines with markers by a 6th grader at OMS. A calligraphy by a 6th grader at Maple Grove Middle School. And these all won Best of Show. Here's a wonderful design by an 8th grader at Maple Grove Middle School. An animal done with watercolor and pen by a 7th grader at Brooklyn Middle School. A lot of talent in our students.
My gosh.
Here's a sculpture done by a 10th grader called I'm Not a Bully by a student from Maple Grove Senior High. Even his dog tag that he made says I'm not a bully. That's cute. A tea set out of stoneware by a 12th grader at Osseo Senior High. A altered book by a 12th grader at Park Center. This is entitled Proper Wife, and it's a digital media done by a 12th grader at Park Center. This is a AP 3D design, so they're actually ceramic things attached to the board, and it's called The Growth of Colonies by an 11th grader at Maple Grove Senior High. The coveted award is the Jacob Beneke Scholarship. It's for $1,000, and Anna Vivalon, a 12th grader at Maple Grove, won it for this piece of work entitled Through Their Eyes. Hopefully I've showed you a little bit about how we're trying to work together across the district to build that community, which goes with our mission statement. Our mission through the arts is to inspire and prepare all students with the confidence, courage, and competence to achieve their dreams, continue to contribute to our community, and engage in a lifetime of learning. Thank you.
much. And I would advise people to go down and look at the show. I was down there last week after a meeting and spent some time looking through everything, and it was phenomenal. Some of the pictures here don't do them justice.
Right.
So they were very cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next agenda item is an audience opportunity to address the school board. We have 4 cards tonight, and I will start with Mr. Doug Chavis from Edenbrook Elementary. Mr. Chavis. Oh. And I have to read this, and it's not because of anybody here, it's just when speakers are present. During audience opportunity to address the school board, I will call on each speaker who has submitted a speaker card. We ask that speakers keep their comments to 3 minutes. The board does not take action or discuss matters during this portion of the meeting. Speakers may be referred to the superintendent or staff if follow-up is necessary. The complete guidelines for public participation are provided on the meeting materials table and on the school board section of the district website. When I call your name, please come to the microphone and state your topic and also whether or not you are a district resident or employee or parent.
Great.
So thank you.
Thank you. I'm representing Doug Chavis. I'm representing about 10 of us or so, 10 or 12 of us here from Edenbrook Elementary School. I'll be the only one from Edenbrook speaking tonight. So with that in mind, I would ask for your permission to speak for about 4.5 minutes as opposed to just the 3.
Okay.
Thank you. I want to address the board and discuss mental health and equity and what that looks like in our district and some concerns I have. But thank you again for giving me the opportunity to speak, and we do, on behalf of Edenbrook, I want to thank you for your service to our community and to uphold our district mission. So thank you sincerely. I'm the school psychologist at Edenbrook Elementary School. With roughly 750 students enrolled, Edenbrook is the largest elementary school on the east side of the district. To qualify as a large school, we need to have an enrollment of at least 700 students. Schools that meet this criterion on the west side of the district include Basswood, Rush Creek, and Fernbrook Elementary Schools. However, there are some very important differences between these other large schools and Edenbrook. I'd like to point a few of those out. Each of these schools have populations with around 25% or fewer students of color, compared to Edenbrook at 86% students of color. These schools are 3 or 4% English learners compared to Edenbrook, where about 25% of our students live in a household where the primary language at home is something other than English. And perhaps, maybe most importantly, in these other 3 schools, an average of about 11%, that's an average, there are a couple of them are under 10 and one's about 15% of students qualify for free and reduced lunch. Contrasted to Edenbrook, where the number is 65% qualifying due to some degree of poverty at home. Now, these are enormous differences with some important equity implications. Edenbrook's needs must be differentiated by the district from these other large elementary schools. Our principal uses his budget to fully buy up a full-time social worker, counselor, and psychologist. And in the last few years, we have dramatically changed the culture at Edenbrook. We're able to teach skills like how to resolve conflict without violence, how to communicate and repair with one another, and how to cope with complex social or domestic problems and heal from trauma. These are skills that are going to serve our kids forever. Each year, our principal seeks input from the building staff and asks what's the priority for them as he considers how to use his budget in the next year. Overwhelmingly, every single year, the answer coming from the teachers in the classroom continues to be, buy up the mental health team. This is now a foundational piece at Edenbrook, and there are abundance of research out there supporting this approach. However, this approach comes at a cost. When we must fully fund our mental health and a robust behavior team from our compensatory dollars, we are hard-pressed to fund positions like additional reading interventionists, which also are critical to bridge the achievement gap. At our school, poverty compounds the problem. For our African American students, the combined effect of poverty and poor third-grade reading skills makes that student 8 times less likely to graduate from our district. Now, I'm not here just to spout stats at you. I just want to make sure that we understand if we're, as a district, are serious about bridging the achievement gap and breaking the cycle of poverty that afflicts so many of our children right here in this community, then we need to make sure that all of our students in our most diverse elementary schools have consistent access to mental health and additional reading support in these critical early elementary grades. Because while 700 students make a large school, the first 700 students through the door at a Basswood are not the same 700 students through the door at Edinbrook. And one of my biggest concerns is how are we addressing that if we are providing the same base FTE to each school. And I would suggest that one equitable approach is for the district to amend the formula to increase the base FTE for a school like Edinbrook that would fully fund our mental health team, thus freeing up dollars to use for academic intervention. So every time you sit down to look at the budget, we just ask you to consider how every dollar we don't spend now on early intervention is going to come back to us, and we're going to have to pay that, make that up in the thousands to catch up later in middle school and high school and in our community. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Chavez. Okay, next up, we have three, I believe, speaking on the same topic. I don't know if you had any preferred order, but I will go with Ms. Lauren Keller first. Oh, Mr., sorry. My neighbor is a Lauren, and my mistake.
Thank you, School Board. As you know, there has been a vote that is reducing ESP hours for resource, and this is a trickle down for many others special ed DSPs. I want to take you through the life of a special ed student. They get off the bus. They're already, due to whatever circumstance, behind. They might be a little confused. They have an ESP there to greet them, to get them off that bus. Then they transition in the middle school to their locker, and then up to class. The teacher is often helping the other students. There's often another ESP there to greet them. He or she is offering support. Once they sit down to do their work in their class, the teacher, again, through no fault of their own, is teaching the whole class. There again, there's an ESP there to help them through their instruction, to help them figure out, I matter. And the instruction that they are learning matters. We often teach basic reading and math. Without these skills, without the individual attention that they have, they're not going to get that. More teachers are great, but we need our ESPs. We need our ESPs for the students there so that they can learn to their full potential, to have that confidence, to have that courage. Thank you. Was that up?
No, 30 seconds. Keep going, please.
So they need that confidence. They need to be able to have that engage in a lifetime of learning. Growing up in this district, I know how valuable this district is. But until I was working as an ESP in special ed, I did not know how impactful that is and how much it's needed. Please consider. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Keller. Next up is Becky Hessman.
You need a stool. I do. I feel like I should be up here. Oh, this moves,
It'll
right?
come down.
Okay. All right. All right. Thank you, Superintendent, School Board Chair. I came here tonight with some statistics and stuff. You know what? I'm not going to read it. I'm talking about the proposal to cut 15 ESP positions and have 5 teacher positions. And I know that there was a formula that they went through to say, oh, it's going to be 15 people, but that's not really the way it is. And I'm just going to speak from my heart, because we could talk about cross subsidies, we could talk about unfunded mandates, we could talk about line items on a spreadsheet. But that's not what we're about working in special ed. It isn't. It's supporting kids, and that's where our heart is. And I know there's a lot of ESPs, and I'm going to ask them to stand up because they each have a board with a number on it. That number is the kids that they support every day in the classroom. So when you're cutting, you are cutting support to those kids. That number of kids, look at that. And you know what? I haven't heard one single one of the ESPs that have heard this say, what's going to happen to me? It's like, I'll be fine. But what's going to happen to my kids? Because we work with these kids in elementary school through all the grades. We work in middle school through all 3. We work through high school with all 4. They become our kids. We know what they need. We're able to respond to what they need in math and science and time management and self-regulation. That's what we do to support kids. Teachers can't do that because there's just not enough of them and not enough time. I personally have worked with 2 students in this district that have had special ed services that have gone on to be ESPs in the school district. They're living on their own. They're holding down a job. This is why we do it, to help them become as independent as possible. And we're either going to pay for it now, or we're going to pay for it on the back end when they're not ready to get out of school. Our school mission says, we inspire and prepare all students to achieve their dreams, contribute to community, and engage in a lifetime of learning. I had an ESP state. She takes that really seriously when she does her goal every year, because we have to do a professional goal every year in the fall. She says, I take it seriously, so when I know what my goal is, I know it's going to help kids. Then she asked me, does the school board not take this seriously? I don't have an answer for him. Only you can answer that. So I'm asking that the school board reconsiders the proposed cuts to the resource ESPs because all our students should matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hessman. And next up is Kathy Hanzog, I believe. Hey.
Good evening. Dr. Balk, President Ostapi, directors, cabinet members, staff, and friends. My name is Kathy Hansen, and I'm a proud teacher in our district for the last 22 years. My topic tonight is, why not and? At the last board meeting, the board made a difficult decision based on the recommendation from administration. Apparently forced to stay within the zero-based budget to not draw funds from the $72 million in reserves this district currently has available. One of the challenging dilemmas with the zero-based budget is how to provide support within the special education area, which has seen an increase of over 289 students and currently serves 1 out of every 7 students in our district. Your decision was to add 5 special education licensed staff and reduce the special education paraprofessionals duty day from 5 to 4 hours. This choice was made knowing full well that our district has $72 million in reserves. So the question for many of us is, why not and? Why can't we increase licensed staff and give our paraprofessionals the hours that we know will benefit our students? Your children are in our classrooms and deserve the attention from the experts to help them grow and succeed. Your decision diminishes the amount of attention the students can receive. I am addressing you tonight with the experience of being a parent of a child who had an IEP throughout his education and being a teacher licensed to teach both mainstream classes and special education sessions. These experiences embed a strong belief in me about the value and need for inclusion for all of our students. Inclusion gives every child an opportunity to an equitable education. Inclusion provides growth and understanding for all students and staff within our district. Inclusion, at times, may require more attention from the teachers to ensure all students' needs are met. When funds are dedicated to support paraprofessionals and significant allocations are directed allowing paraprofessionals to help in our mainstream classes, all students benefit from the investment. Our district is fortunate to have so many experienced paraprofessionals who understand how to seamlessly work with teachers and students, providing extra attention to our students, which can decrease frustrations not only for our students, but also our teachers. If the board cannot find funds to maintain or even possibly increase the current hours of our paraprofessionals have, we risk losing these valuable district assets to other employers who are willing to invest in their skills and experience and provide the necessary hours and benefits they need to sustain their employment and their families. Is this something you are really willing to risk for your children? Is this a risk our district needs to take? Again, we ask, why not and? Teachers are expected to be experts and meet their target outcomes in every lesson. Your children deserve to have the very best with the most support possible. The investment of providing support for all students from the $72 million in reserves is minimal compared to what could be lost without giving our students the experience, support, and attention they require. Do you really want to take this risk for our children? As a parent, I would not. And as a teacher, I believe our students do not deserve to face that risk when funds are available. Why not and?
Thank you, Kathy. Okay, I'd like to thank all the speakers this evening. I know you have a lot of passion for what you do. We appreciate it. Next on the agenda is the superintendent's report. Dr. Bout?
No report this evening.
Okay. Next up are the school board reports. First with the March 5th, 2019 work session. Director Dawson Walton, can you read the report, please?
Yes, I'd be happy to. Hello? Are we on? Okay, I couldn't hear myself. Okay, so March 5th, we had a work session. We received an update on the long-term facilities maintenance program, and I have to say, I think, you know, as a new board member, it was a long evening, a lot of questions, and I'm just on the two fronts for long-term facilities maintenance program and technology. Just really impressed with the amount of work that our staff does in terms of planning efforts and really ensuring that we have an equitable facilities plan as well as technology. So I think that's really great. I just wanted to say that. So we reviewed the 2018 projects and a preview of the 2019 summer projects. The staff introduced a new project summary template that will be used to communicate future long-term facilities maintenance projects that will help board members in making decisions on bid and contract awards. The board also heard an update on turf field projects at Osseo and Park Center High Schools, including a potential partnership opportunity with the city of Brooklyn Park to construct a dome on one of the turf fields at Park Center. And then finally, the board received information about a parking lot redesign at Park Center and Brooklyn Middle School to address safety concerns that exist at the location. Then Anthony Padnos, Executive Director of Technology, and Steve Flisk, Assistant Superintendent, provided an update on the DL4A Digital Learning for All strategic priority work. Information was provided on the current implementation at the high school level, the preparation of next year's implementation at the middle school level, which includes the transition to Chromebooks, and the focused elementary study that will occur next school year. We also discussed information about possibilities of e-learning days next year, and I think the technology work that Anthony is doing is really exciting, and I think that our community will be really excited to learn more. So, thank you.
All right, thank you. Next up is the March 5th Policy Committee meeting. Director Douglas, can you please read the report?
I can. The School Board Policy Committee met here at the ESC at 4:30 p.m. on Tuesday, March 5th, 2019. Board members Jessica Craig, myself, and Jackie Mosqueda Jones attended. Also attending was the Executive Director of Technology, Anthony Paternos, our Coordinator of Instructional Systems, Lisa Sjogren, our CIES Coordinator, Andy Bedeau, and Tim Palmatier, our General Counsel. The committee reviewed policies 524 and 441, which pertain to technology and acceptable use by students and staff, respectively. The committee's recommended revisions to these policies are being presented for first reading during tonight's meeting. At the meeting, the committee also reviewed a list of current policies and began initial discussions about potential policies for future review. The next policy committee meeting is scheduled to be held here at the ESC on Tuesday, April 9th, 2019 at 4:30 p.m. Policy committee meetings are open to the public and community members are encouraged to attend.
Thank you very much, Director Douglas. Next on the agenda is item number 8, which is a presentation. And so I'd like Anthony Paternos, Ron Meyer, and Laura Anderson to step forward and we'll present on the implementation of eFinance Plus, which is the district's new finance and human resources and payroll system.
Good evening, Superintendent Bach, Chair Ostafi, and Board. Laurel Anderson, Ron Meyer, and myself are here tonight to give a summary of where we're at on the implementation of eFinance Plus. And for several new board members, maybe a little more background of what this project has been and entailed. So a quick timeline, kind of broken down by fiscal years. In fiscal year 15, TIES, the former technology consortium that many school districts were a part of, announced the end of their current HR information system and finance information system, which is a product that we have had for many years and many districts have had for many years. And it is a core application for our operations within our system. So it manages all our finance and budgets as well as all our human resource and people information, similar to a student information system that we house all our student stuff in. In fiscal year 17, Osseo kind of reviewed a variety of products out there. There are not a lot of finance and HR information systems on the market that are acceptable in the Minnesota market because there are compliance and legal requirements for reporting that these systems have to comply with. And the solution that we ended up selecting is the eFinance Plus solution, which is the one that TIES was looking at the time as a sunsetted their product to partner with an organization to bring another offering to school districts. During that fiscal year 17, after we made the movement forward with going with eFinance Plus, and this is just kind of a side note of kind of how everything unfolded within our project, Power Schools, which is another company, purchased that product from SunGard, who originally owned it. So when TIES went in the original partnership, and as we were going through the original review process, it was under the guidelines and the way that SunGard had that product laid out for many, many years across our country, and then was purchased by Power Schools. Fiscal year 18, which was last school year, we started the implementation of the project and had a very robust outline and a very aggressive project plan on the implementation of that product. Of course, many of you know during the course of last year, TIES ended up dissolving as an organization and got acquired by Sourcewell, which had some impacts on how we were transitioning to different softwares and doing implementations of products at that time. We got to about January of last year and recognizing with the purchase of eFinance Plus by Power Schools and the dissolution of TIES, the project needed to kind of have a pause and a reset and a re-understanding of where we were going with the project and how we could successfully implement. There were a variety of factors that came into understanding that. Would we actually be ready to go live July 1? Were all the pieces in place to effectively launch payroll so everybody would get paid and that all the data would be transitioned and correctly in that system? We also found some unforeseen pieces in there with that transition of SunGuard to Power Schools. When we looked at the original module set that we brought on, the development plan behind that wasn't as robust as what SunGuard had road mapped out, and Power Schools had kind of paused some of the pieces on that, where we had to look at additional software products that we weren't anticipating to bring in as part of our overall scale and scope of this project. Where we have landed this year in fiscal year 19 is we have successfully launched eFinance Plus based on our reset, and I will turn it over to Laurel in a little bit when she'll get into a little more detail on that reset piece. But initially we looked at the whole product, which had 32 different modules and 5 existing pieces of software that we were going to integrate in. When we got to the reset to be successful with our implementation, we had to scale that back to 18 core modules within eFinance Plus, keeping 3 of the existing software solutions that we had, and we had to bring in 2 different additional software solutions to integrate in with eFinance Plus to bring in the core application of what we wanted to do. And with that, there's still some outstanding work to get to complete efficiencies, but we did a lot of great things and accomplished a lot in that year and a half. And when you're looking at a critical system like eFinance Plus, which is our HR and finance information systems, this is the heart of the operations of our organization. And it takes time with an organization this size to get all of that data transferred and everything set up to run effectively and efficiently to really manage how we are doing things from the electronic back end in the system. And I'm going to hand it over to Laurel to kind of give an overview of kind of where we've gone with the project details.
Thank you, Anthony. Throughout the project, our desire was absolutely a smooth transition for our users. We wanted this to be a successful implementation, and we knew from the very beginning that we were ambitious. We knew that 32 modules was a lot of undertaking in 1 year. As we got into the complexities of the system, we realized just how ambitious those 32 modules were, along with trying to integrate 5 systems. But our focus was on making sure that we minimized any errors, and again, that we had a tremendously smooth transition for our users. So as Anthony mentioned, we did a project reset. When we did that project reset, we scaled back to 18 modules. We still have 11 modules that are outstanding. And as a math teacher, I want to make sure that I point out the obvious, that I do know that 18 plus 11 does not add up to 32. Okay, just to be clear, I do understand that. Anthony mentioned that there were some modules that we had in the initial rollout that we decided either not to do or we chose a different product. So that's why they're not included on the modules, but they are in fact into the new systems, either in the project reset or the outstanding work. So as you look at the next slide, there's a lot of detail on this slide. This shows you exactly what modules we were initially looking at, the modules that we've been working on through the project reset, and then the outstanding modules. And there are a number of outstanding modules that we believe will help us be the most efficient and effective users of this new system. For example, professional development. We know that Keep Certified is going to be going away with the TIES system, and we need a system for our employees to track their professional development. We also are looking forward to using the evaluation tool. That's going to take us some time to set up and implement the way we want it to be implemented for a system as large as we are. So we know there's outstanding work, and we're really looking forward to getting towards that outstanding work. Initially, the feedback that I've received from users of this eFinance Plus system is it's phenomenally easy to use, that it's intuitive, and it makes sense. And so they're thrilled by what they're seeing, and we want to do more to maximize our use of it. And Ron's going to talk a little bit about the next phase of the transition and finances.
So as we look at some of those outstanding components that we still need to implement, I want to go through a little bit in terms of some of the financial pieces. When we recognized that TIES was going forward with dissolving, last year the board supported and authorized a pair for $470,000 for ongoing expenses as it related to ensuring that the services, it wasn't just our HR, finance, payroll system, but we had many other technology pieces that we were utilizing ties for. And so to ensure a successful transition and ensure that we continue to keep our service levels at the same place and going forward with new systems, including eFinance Plus, the board approved the budget for an ongoing $470,000 pair to support that work. And so as you see on the slide, as we look forward to when we bring the fiscal year 2020 budget, some of the specific elements that $470,000 will go towards is within our IT department, two database integration developers, within our finance department and FTE, looking again at continuing to implement those outstanding modules, as well as training and support of our end users on the system. And within our HR department, one FTE for professional development, integration, and again, looking at some of those outstanding modules. And then in addition to that, our project manager that has been working throughout the last year and a half in the implementation phase, that $470,000, there's enough capacity to continue her on to help us successfully complete the implementation of those additional modules. There's a couple other pieces. While it doesn't relate specifically for the FY 2020 budget and that $470,000 for budget capacity, but I did want to bring it to the attention of the board. You'll see this a little bit later when Kelly talks about the mid-year budget adjustment. But one of the expenses that we had as a district that we budgeted for this year was the dissolution of ties. And we had an estimate that ties gave us, and we did come about $114,000 under budget with that, so that is a cost savings from what we budgeted. You'll see that in the mid-year budget. And then we also have, we're waiting, I believe April 3rd is the date of closing for the ties building, and so once the sale becomes final in about June, we are expecting proceeds, our portion of it, which should be somewhere over $100,000 for the ties building sale. So those are just a couple of other elements from a financial standpoint as we look at not just the implementation of eFinance, but also the ties dissolution and ensuring that we continue to maintain those service levels. So with that, we'll take any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Board members, any questions?
I do have a.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr.
Director
Chair.
Craig.
As far as the district project manager, I think we originally had maybe contracted for 1 year or 2 years, and we're looking at an additional year on top of that. Is that what I'm understanding?
From my understanding, the original contract discussion, while we did it for 12 months, was an 18-month contract. And then we came back last year and had the discussion with the reset of the project to extend that for a full 2 years. As we're looking at the rest of the modules and really getting the efficiencies and the optimization of what we want because of some of the other pieces and how we've delayed some of those modules, our request and recommendation is to continue with that project manager who knows the intricacies of all the departments, the back end of the system, and the other tools that are coming in to be able to implement all the rest of the functionality within that 1 year time span and have those in place.
Thank you.
So the remaining time span of the project is going to be approximately a year.
Correct.
Okay.
And I would add that it is an ongoing project, so we're always looking to improve efficiencies and get better at what we do. But the scope of the FTE for human resources and business services is 2 years. Project manager would be for 1 more year.
Okay, and then after that, those resource requirements of doing the initial integration and the training and bringing everybody up to speed as we transition will no longer be needed or will be needed in other capacity. I mean, where will that budget capacity go? Will we be able to do it in a pair, or will we be able to remove that somehow? I know we're looking 2 years ahead, but.
Yeah, we'll have to look at that as we get there. There's the potential for removing that and putting that back into the overall budgeting process. But what we're looking at right now is just the 1 year for the project manager to finish up the final technical implementations, and then in that HR and finance for those 2-year pieces, again with business process optimization and training and some of the, when we talk about a potential online electronic evaluation system, many districts look at that as a standalone project with its own project manager within districts. So, looking at the resources we have and building that in with that to be able to move over in that 2-year period to build those efficiencies. And at that time, I can't speak for the HR and finance. I'll let Laurel and Ron. The database integration developer piece, that will be an ongoing component that's coming out of that 470,000 pair. That was part of the build-in of the TIES dissolution to support all the back-end products. So we used to rely heavily on TIES doing database integration work and developing databases for us, where we have brought that skill set and capacity in-house. While we say it's 2 FTEs, it's not completely 2 FTEs out of that 470 because we did some reorganization within the information systems department. So there was one position that already sort of existed that needed a little bump in it, and then one additional body. It's really what was added into the info systems department.
So do you see any other major roadblocks that would take this past a year for the technical implementation and 2 years for the remainder of the business process implementation?
For the technical process, no. I see where we're at right now is it's pretty clearly scoped. We have a very good understanding of the technical applications that we're bringing in or maybe bringing in. That as we look at the replacement for Keep Certified and for the employee evaluation system, there's kind of 2 key products out there that are very similar from a technical backend, and we've got a pretty good idea of technically how to get that in place. So I don't foresee any other roadblocks coming from the technical aspect. And I'll let Ron and Laurel speak to the other components.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I would just add in terms of some of the benefits. We're about a year out now from TIES deciding to dissolve and moving towards Sourcewell. And so that's given us a year to work with their staff to better understand, for them to better understand some of the needs that we have as a district, as well as for us to better understand the capabilities that they have as an organization. And so I think that aids us as well in being able to meet those timelines in terms of really being able to accomplish those goals and those modules. As Laurel kind of said, we know that there's going to continue to be things as we get to know the system, as they continue to do research and development and come up with new pieces that can help us as an organization. So there's going to be those ongoing things, but in terms of the implementation of those modules that we've identified, we feel comfortable that within a year we can accomplish that.
Okay. Thank you. Directors, any other questions? Any? All right, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Board members, the next agenda item is the consent agenda. Are there any items you would like to remove for separate consideration? Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Moved by Director Simons. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Director Craig. Is there any discussion? All in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. The first action item on tonight's agenda for action items is the mid-year budget adjustments. Kelly Benusa will be speaking to that. Kelly?
Good evening, Chair Staffy, board members, and Interim Superintendent Bauk. The purpose of this evening's presentation is to provide information on the fiscal year 2019 mid-year budget revisions. At the June 19th, 2018 meeting, the school board approved the adopted budgets for all funds that we budget for. The first column on this slide shows the adopted budget for the General Operating Transportation Fund. I just realized it's not up there, sorry. All right. So as I was saying, the first column on this slide shows the adopted budget for the General Operating Transportation Fund. The second column, highlighted in blue, are the mid-year adjustments for revenue and expenditures. The net change is a decrease to fund balance of $857,000. This is made up of a small increase of 0.41% for revenues and 0.75% for expenditures. So overall, the net change is 0.2% or 0.2% of the combined revenue and expenditure budgets. The revenue budget changes are as follows. A $965,000 increase for the TRA and PRA direct aid, which is required to be recorded as revenue and offset by the same amount in other expenditures per GASB 68, and this was previously not budgeted for. A $600,000 decrease in special education calculations due to the proration of 97.6%, a $453,000 increase, of which $268,000 in general education revenue is for the increase in the employer portion of the TRA rate increase from 7.5 to 7.71% as of July 1st, 2018. And then the remaining adjustment is based on revised student projections, which are based on the January 2019 student enrollment, and show an increase of 4.4 adjusted pupil units from the adopted budgeted projections. We have a $300,000 increase in interest earnings, a $295,000 net decrease in delinquents and abatements. For fiscal year 2019, we have a court-ordered abatement decrease of $409,600, and this will be recovered as state aid in fiscal year 2020, and is included on the base and tactic document, which is later in this presentation. A $100,000 increase in desegregation transportation, which is based on prior year costs, and a $46,000 increase in miscellaneous adjustments. Those amounts total the $969,000 net positive revenue adjustment. Next, the expenditure budget is being increased by $1.8 million from the adopted budget. We analyzed the expenditures in 4 categories: salaries, employee benefits, purchase services, and supplies and other items. Salaries decreased $796,000 in contract settlements, $470,000 increase in special funded projects for compensatory aid due to spending requirements, and $145,000 decrease for attrition and allocation. This is a combined decrease in salaries of $1.4 million from the adopted budget. Employee benefits increased $953,000 in employer-paid health insurance premiums due to a rate increase for PEEP, employee plan migration, and an additional 46 participants from the previous year. $284,000 increase for the employer portion of TRA, which is offset by the increase in Gen Ed revenue discussed earlier. A $240,000 increase in HSA employer contributions based on plan selection of employees during open enrollment periods. A $171,000 increase in benefits charged to special funded projects for compensatory. $145,000 increase for the benefit portion of attrition and allocation of staff. $126,000 increase in retirement savings plan contributions for teachers, and then $25,000 of miscellaneous. So this is a combined increase of employee benefits of $1.6 million from the adopted budget. Purchase services increased $475,000 in tuition costs for post-secondary education, which is offset by increased revenue, and special education. A $426,000 increase in transportation costs for homeless and deseg categories. A $115,000 decrease, which is the ties dissolution estimates that we just heard about in the previous presentation, and then $54,000 decrease for miscellaneous adjustments. So this is a combined increase in purchase services of $732,000 from the adopted budget. Supplies and other expenditures increased $965,000 for the increase in the TRA and PRA direct aid, and then decreased $62,000 for miscellaneous adjustments, for a net increase of $903,000. Overall, the net expenditure adjustment of $1.8 million is more than the 2019 adopted budget. This slide shows the baseline projections for future years. It includes the revised budget for 2019, projected for 2021 through 2023 show operational reductions of $2, $6, and $8 million would be needed to maintain a minimum fund balance of 5% if the base assumptions hold true for the next 4 years. Next, we'll look at the tactic projection for future years. The tactic projection includes revenue and expenditure tactics that are utilized to impact the future projected years. Just like the base projection, it includes the revised budget for fiscal year 2019. Fund balance is projected at nearly $67 million and 27.55% of budgeted expenditures. It includes the revenue tactics for, in fiscal year 2020, the known revenue tactic for the abatement levy reduction in 2019 and abatement aid in fiscal year 2020. The projections for 2020 and 2022 include a revenue tactic of 1% increase to the basic formula allowance for the first year of each of the next 2 bienniums. We'll adjust this assumption after the legislative session is finalized for the current biennium. And the final tactic is the known levy adjustments for the fiscal year 2020 of $2.5 million. Expenditure tactics include, for fiscal years 2020, which show the enrollment adjustment which was approved by the board in February, and the fiscal year 2021 through 2023 enrollment adjustments based on the 5-year enrollment projections, which was presented to the board in December. The fiscal year 2020 through 2023 show a reduction in expenditure trend from 3.75% to 3.25%, which results in a $1.2 to $1.3 million reduction in projected annual expenditures. And then in fiscal year 2019, we have a known reduction in the reserve for third-party billing, which is based down on planned spend-down projections. And the fiscal year 2019 mid-year adjustment reflects a decrease in fund balance of $4.5 million. However, the net impact to the unreserved general fund balance after considering the third-party medical billing carryover is an increase of $929,000. So this amount reduces the projected spend down of fund balance to $3.6 million for fiscal year 2019. By utilizing the known items and tactics for both revenues and expenditures, the projection for 2022 and 2023 show operational reductions of $4 and $6 million would be needed to maintain a minimum fund balance level of 5%. The Food and Nutrition Fund Services revenue budget will be decreased by $552,000, and the expenditure budget will be decreased by $169,000, for a net decrease to fund balance of $383,000. Revenues are being decreased due to lost sales from the 4 snow days, a decrease in lunch program participation and a la carte sales, and then expenses are decreasing due to less food inventory for those 4 snow days and then milk costs. The Community Service Fund revenue budget will be increased by $535,000, and expenditures will be increased by $230,000, for a net positive change of $305,000. Revenues are positively impacted by Kids Stop and Youth Enrichment Program growth due to increased participation, and expenditures are increasing in those same programs due to program growth. The Capital Expenditure Land Proceeds Fund revenue budget will be increased by $214,000, and expenditures budget will be increased by $773,000, for a net decrease to fund balance of $559,000. Revenue is increasing for the state aid portion of operating capital and decreased E-rate revenue, and then expenditures are increasing for the purchase of land and professional fees and decreased for lease costs. The Debt Service Fund revenue budget will be increased by $21 million, and the expenditure budget will be increased by $16.6 million, for a net positive change of $4.4 million. Revenues are being increased for the following debt issuances: the 2018 B General Obligation Facilities Maintenance Bonds, the 2018 C General Obligation Alternative Facilities Refunding Bonds, and then the 2018 D General Obligation OPEB Refunding Bonds. And expenditures are increasing for refunding payments for the 2009 A General Obligation Taxable OPEB Bonds and the 2009 B General Obligation Alternative Facility Bonds. This last slide shows a summary of the net mid-year budget revisions in the 5 funds we budget for. And that concludes the presentation.
Thank you, Kelly. What's that?
You'll need a motion before you have discussion.
Oh, okay then. So is there a motion to approve the mid-year budget adjustments for fiscal year 2019?
So moved.
So moved by Director Craig. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Director Douglas. What's that? Simon, sorry. Is there any discussion or any questions for Ms. Benusa?
I do have a quick question.
Director Craig?
I believe I read yesterday that the governor had proposed a 3% increase the first year and then 2% the following year. And I know we kind of adjust after session is over. Have you heard anything about those percents? I'm just curious.
Not anything other than what you heard.
So I do believe our revenue growth projections right now are flatlined, but increase for population increase, but don't take into account anything coming from the legislature because nothing's guaranteed. So until that comes in, we're showing those greater deficits, and hopefully we can get that additional funding, as well as some of the significant differences that we pay on special education. And they are working on that in the legislature right now, and they're working on the funding, and they're working on many other issues that would impact us. So hopefully we will know a lot more by sometime in May, I believe it is, of what it would be for the impact for us for next year. And that's would come into budgeting for next year.
So our projection for next year includes a 1%? So of that 3, right?
Thank you.
And then 0 in the next year.
So it is a, conservative budgeting, and that's what this district has done for some time.
That was all. Thank you.
And you're welcome. Any other questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Yes.
So when we look at the general operating and transportation expenditures and increases, are these automatically assumed then to carry forward as part of the base, or are these viewed as one-time, or are any of these portions, any of these considered to be one-time? So for example, the increase in tuition costs for post-secondary and the transportation costs, we're assuming that those are now a new base to carry forward, or are those one-time increases this year and we have a different assumption going forward?
For the most part, they're items that carry over, and then we analyze them when we adopt the budget, and then again when we do the mid-year, and then again when we do the year-end. So
okay,
we revise those at several points in the year.
Yeah. Okay.
And some of these seem to be structural, such as changes in health plans and health insurance. I mean, those are some of the basics, but some of the other ones, contract settlements, that does move forward. Some of this TRA stuff that came through, we have some significant increases in cost, but we are getting some of that back from the legislature, who were trying to, they mandated us to pay that, but they did pay some of it. So some of it will be structural. A lot of it will be structural going forward. All right, any other questions?
Just a follow-up comment to Jessica's question. I wish we had more information right now, and obviously they're moving into the finance discussion now starting this week, so we'll be monitoring that. And then I know when Kelly and Ron bring the budget back in the June 4th work session, we'll have taken the whatever has been passed, and hopefully they don't have a special session, and then incorporate that in the budget that's presented to you in that work session on June 4th. So we'll keep updating you as we find out information.
Thank you.
Yep, things will keep changing. So, okay, thank you very much, Kelly. So with that, we had a motion and a second. We've had our discussion. All in favor of approving the fiscal year 19 mid-year budget adjustments, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. The next action item is the second reading of Policy 806, Crisis Management, as well as several other policies. So, Mr. Palmatier, I'll hand it over to you for all of those.
Okay. Thank you, Chair Ostafi, school board members, and Superintendent Bauk. Revisions to Policies 806 and 922 are before the board tonight for second read, as well as revision, or maybe more appropriately, adoption of Policy 807 is also before you. The first reading of these aforementioned policies was at the regular meeting of the school board on February 12, 2019. At least 4 weeks has passed since the first reading of these policies, and under school district bylaws, if approved by the board this evening, the revised policies will be adopted. So I'll address each of these proposed policies at this time, with the board taking action on each policy individually thereafter. The first two policies for second reading tonight are Policy 806, Crisis Management, and Policy 807, Health and Safety. The current version of Policy 806 was adopted in 2006, and it addresses both crisis management and broader health and safety concerns. It was recommended by the Policy Committee that the current policy be divided into two separate policies to address crisis management and health and safety separately. The establishment of two separate policies is consistent with MSBA model policies and is also consistent with how responsibilities are currently assigned between the two coordinators in the district's health and safety department at this time. The proposed written revision to Policy 806 Crisis Management is required by law. The proposed policy has been revised to align with current formatting standards. Substantively, the proposed policy reflects our current practice and establishes clearer directives for administration to develop emergency preparedness guidance for each school site. And it requires the development of crisis management teams with defined responsibilities for team members at both district and building levels. And finally, the policy sets forth the requirements of Minnesota statute requiring a prescribed number of lockdown, fire, and tornado drills. Next up on for second reading tonight is proposed policy 807. As stated earlier, this is really an adoption of a new policy since we're dividing the two policies into separate policies. This proposed policy separately addresses district health and safety programs. While the school board or the school districts are not required to currently have such a policy since there was a recent change to the statute, the policy committee recommended nonetheless that we maintain this particular policy in essence to reflect the commitment to addressing health and safety issues for the school district. The proposed policy has been revised to align with current formatting standards. The substantive requirements from the policy have been maintained in the proposed policy. The only modification to the policy is to delete the current reference to workplace accident injury reduction or an AWARE program. Such programs are generally not required in school district operations and really are applicable to other industries. And the final policy recommended for second reading tonight is Policy 922, non-chemical use on school premises. This policy was last reviewed in 2001. While the policy is not specifically mandated by law, possession of controlled substances and alcohol is strictly prohibited under state law, and the policy reflects those prohibitions. The revised policy maintains the current prohibition on prohibited chemicals. The only proposed revision in this particular policy is to update formatting and an inclusion of the definition of school property to more clearly define the parameters of the policy. With that, I'll turn the proposed policies for second reading back to Chair Staffi.
Thank you very much, Mr. Palmatier. So we're going to go through each of these separately. So to begin with, is there a motion to approve the rewrite of Policy 806, Crisis Management?
So moved.
So moved by Director Mosqueda Jones. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Director Douglas. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Next action is the Policy 807. So is there a motion to approve the revision or creation of Policy 807, Health and Safety?
So moved.
So moved by Director Dawson-Walton. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Director Douglas. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Next is Policy 922. Is there a motion to approve the revision of Policy 922, the non-use of chemicals on school premises?
So moved.
So moved by Director Douglas. Is there a second? Second, sorry, you guys sound alike. Moved by a motion by Director Simmons. And second?
Second.
Second by
Director Craig.
Director Craig. I didn't see you say anything. Is there any discussion? No discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Final action tonight is the recommendation to accept gifts to the district totaling $65,475.17. Is there a motion to accept gifts to the district totaling $65,475.17?
So moved.
So moved by Director Craig. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Director Douglas. Is there any discussion? Thank you to everyone, from the gifts of $10, $15, $20 to the PTAs and PTOs who have donated thousands and tens of thousands of dollars to the district. Each and every one of you, we appreciate it. Any other discussion? All in favor of graciously accepting the gift, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Next are informational items. So, Mr. Palmatier, will you please talk about the first reading of the policy as noted in the agenda?
Thank you, Chair Ostafi, school board members, and Superintendent Bauk. There are two policies on the agenda for first reading tonight. Policy 441, Technology and Internet Acceptable Use by Staff, and Policy 524, Technology and Internet Acceptable Use by Students. First, I'll bring up rewrite or revisions to Policy 441. This policy was last revised in July of 2014. Since that time, the district has adopted and implemented its one-to-one technology initiative, and the administration has surfaced additional interests and potential concerns concerning overall technology use. Under the Children's Internet Protection Act, CIPA, public schools are required to adopt such a policy. The proposed rewritten policy combines current policies 441 and 524 into one policy. Establishing one acceptable use policy instead of two separate policies eliminates redundancy and provides greater clarity for the district's management of its technology. This approach is also consistent with how MSBA policies address acceptable use. Proposed Policy 441 includes the following substantive modifications. It includes a definitions section to better identify the scope of the systems and technologies covered by the policy. It adds a section on security, which establishes specific use expectations on matters such as password protection and the use and acquisition of outside digital resources in order to maintain the integrity of digital systems and technologies. It adds a section on internet safety to help ensure better compliance with CIPA, as previously mentioned. It elaborates and provides further clarity on the types of uses that are specifically prohibited. It adds a section that sets forth the limited privacy expectations that users have when using district systems and technology. It adds a section on social media use that clarifies acceptable use standards that apply to school-related social media use, and that requires development of guidelines and the proper use of social media. And it also includes a disclaimer language clarifying the district's responsibility or position as it relates to unauthorized uses of district systems and technology. And then related is the repeal of Policy 524, Technology and Internet Acceptable Use by Students. As previously indicated, this policy is being incorporated into revised Policy 441. As a result, it's being proposed that Policy 524 be repealed. First reading begins a 4-week period for reaction to proposed policy changes by concerned groups or individuals. After a 4-week period, the school board may adopt or repeal or amend a policy after a second reading. The proposed policies are available on the district's website with the agenda for this meeting. Comments on the policies discussed here tonight may be directed to the school board or myself. Comments on these policies may also be provided online from the school board policy and procedures web page on the school district's website.
Thank you, Mr. Palmatier. Last agenda item tonight is adjournment. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved by Director Craig. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Director Simons. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned at 7:31.